Hi, welcome to ESS Year 2. I'm Megan McLean, the teacher, and this is our second year together. So I just want to give you a little recap of what we did last year, where we left off, and where we're headed for the following year, getting your child prepared for the IB exams in May. Well, last year, surprisingly, right, went so well, even though we had COVID and everyone was home. The kids they powered through the content when we were doing online learning. So we just crammed in a whole bunch of the content. We had some really great discussions online about all of the environmental issues happening. And then thankfully we got to see each other face to face in May, and we spent as much time as we could outside doing a lot of the field work that we missed out on at the beginning of the year. So it was really nice to get to do that, to spend some real face-to-face and quality time with them, doing some of the labs that we never got to try. And so where we're headed for this coming year, um, here's the topics that we covered. We did foundations, ecology, biodiversity, water and aquatic food production, soil systems and terrestrial food production. So that's where we left off. And where we're headed now is we are right in the middle of atmospheric systems. I'll give you a little taste of some of the things that we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks. We're going to do climate change and energy policy or production, sorry. And then lastly, we will be doing humans and resource use. So that humans and resource use is going to be looking at population growth models, and also what do we do with all the stuff like our recycling and our garbage and sustainability, and is there a carrying capacity on the planet? So we will probably be done with content acquisition pretty soon. I would say just after we get back from the holidays. Okay, so um, then when we get back, we're going to be really focused on the IA. Actually, will be the big thing when we get back from the winter break. So we will spend probably a good month really digging in, letting them explore something that's of their interest, because that individual investigation that they do is going to be worth 20% of their overall grade. And then after we're done with that, we're going to start really reviewing and preparing for the exams that are going to be in May. And there's two exams over 2 days that make up 75% of their grades. So we'll have lots of time to practice. Okay, so first, I just want to give you an idea of some of the things we've been talking about this past week in atmospheric systems, just to give you an idea of what types of things they might be expected to know on an exam, like some of these exams I'll take in May. And then I'll talk to you a little bit more about the investigations. So here's just a couple of possible questions that they've been looking at with atmospheric systems. They have to answer really heavy things like, to what extent is altering human activity the most effective level of intervention when you're dealing with acid rain? So there is no right answer, but they have to be able to justify their responses. They have to be able to provide evidence of case studies. So they might be looking at case studies of acid rain in Scandinavia and how that's been caused possibly by industrial processes in Germany and in the UK, and how that impacts their and then what are the different strategies that have gone on there, and are they effective? So evidence and justification, they have to really make a solid argument that's backed up with reasoning and case studies. But other things too, they just need to be able to know what are the impacts of some of these pollutants that we're studying, like what are the impacts of photochemical smog on ecosystems and on societies. Because again, this is a group 3 and group 4 course, so they need to know a lot of the social systems involved, and they also have to know a lot of the science aspects involved. So how is it affecting the natural world as well as human societies? So it's been a lot of fun, and we've dug into the atmospheric pollution, and then we'll be heading into climate change next. All right, but the labs, just to give you an idea, some of the labs might be experiments here in the classroom where they're actually doing lab work. There's this really nice one that was done last year looking at the impacts of soil compaction on agricultural productivity. And so they were looking at how water could infiltrate depending on how compact the soil was. And a lot of different agricultural practices could result in compact soil, which could affect the productivity and the yield. So this was a great study. This was some field work that was done looking at the the nitrogen levels or the nitrate levels and the pollution, and the biochemical oxygen demand in the water, upstream and downstream of a water treatment plant that's right behind the school here. And they saw some really significant changes. So here's upstream. They saw actually really good quality water, and then it dropped right after the treatment plant and then slowly started to recover as you went downstream. Some of the field work is actually not field work as in ecology field work, but they might choose to investigate the impacts that and quantify some of the impacts we have in our everyday choices. So this was a really cool lab where kids were looking at how much impact that our food choices had on our lunch food choices have on our overall carbon footprint here at ISP. And they found that probably the most significant impact was having beef. So it was only like 17% of the food choices, but it was 40% of the carbon impact of the school as far as food was concerned. And so they made some recommendations about reducing beef, consumption and so on. So that was a really interesting one. I mean, they could look at anything from paper to solar panels. If there's any real topic of interest they want to investigate to see what types of impacts we're making, that's another possibility. But we can also do secondary data. This was a really cool one. I had a kid look at, there was some population policies that were implemented in 1974 here in the Czech Republic. Well, it was Czechoslovakia at the time. And they wanted to see if those population policies were effective, if they actually saw population growth, which those policies that were implemented were trying to encourage population growth and more families having more babies. And so they were comparing the populations the 10 years before and the 10 years after those policies to see if there was a difference. And you can see statistically, there really wasn't. So your student might be digging into any of these things, and the nice thing about this course is there's so many cool things to investigate, and they can really follow their interests and their strengths, and what they want to do. So I'm looking forward to that aspect with them, and we've had a really nice time. They've been so much fun to work with over the past year, and I just have really high expectations because they are really doing what they need to do to get to where I think that they're capable of being come May. All right. If you have any questions for me or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out. Send me an email, and we can set up a time to Zoom, or we can just chat by email, whatever works for you. And have a good rest of your evening.